Amazing. I can see a couple of you joining in now. Sorry, I have very limited ability when seeing who is joining us and who is not. Thank you first and foremost, I should say, Talia and the Purposeful Project for having me today. I'm going to be talking about how to build your personal brand, specifically on social media, but we'll touch on platforms like LinkedIn, TikTok, etc. My name is Amelia Sordell. I run a personal branding agency called Clout, and we essentially help founders, entrepreneurs, senior C-level people leverage their personalities in order to get a competitive business advantage. Who am I to be telling you this? Who the hell am I to be here giving you this workshop today? Well, I have accumulated nearly 130,000 followers on LinkedIn. I have nearly 100,000 likes on TikTok, 5,000 followers on Instagram, and thousands of downloads on my podcast. And all of this sounds really lovely and really beautiful and very vain. But what the whole point of this is what that attention means to your bottom line. What is that driving in sales to your business? I have built a 100% inbound business off the back of building my personal brand online. So hopefully today, you guys can get some tips and tricks and also the kind of base work knowledge of what you need in order to do the same. We're going to be leaving about 5 to 7 minutes at the end of this workshop today to go through Q&A. So if you do have a question, please fire it into the Q&A box or fire it into the chat as you think of it. The worst thing about these types of workshops is people wait right to the end of the workshop to ask their question they've forgotten. So please, if you have a question, just whack it into the chat, whack it into the Q&A section now, ready for when we have that quick fire 5 to 7 minutes at the end of the session. And also thank you so much for giving up this next half an hour with me. I know it's 6 o'clock on a Thursday. You probably want to be at a pub. So thank you very much. So without further ado, how to build your personal brand on social media. So first and foremost, what is a personal brand? What does it even mean, right? So for me, your personal brand, or your personal branding strategy, I should say, is the tactics and the strategy that you use to create a reputation for yourself at scale. At any given time, you have a personal brand with your family, with your friends, with your colleagues, boyfriend, girlfriend, partner. Everyone around you has a perception of who you are and the value that you can bring to them. That is your personal brand. Personal branding doesn't just mean posting stuff on social media and building some kind of following. Personal brand is all about the reputation that following has of you, right? Or rather you have to them. So what is a personal brand? A personal brand is basically the ability for you to influence people into believing that you are a certain way or can do certain things or hold a certain value in a room that you currently aren't in. For me, that is on LinkedIn, it's on TikTok, it's on Instagram. I'm influencing people without being in the room with them. And that's what a personal brand is. There's only so many phone conversations you can have in a day. There's only so many one-to-one meetings you can have in a day. There's only so many emails you can send in a day. Personal branding is infinite. Personal branding allows you to create infinite inbound opportunities for your business because people will trust you as the supplier of choice, not just as choice amongst many. So that is what your personal brand is. So what does that mean to your business? So as I said, when I first started this workshop a few minutes ago, I built up a 100% inbound business purely off the back of my personal brand. And some of you maybe follow me on LinkedIn. Some of you have never heard of me before. Both are totally fine. But it'll be worthwhile at the end of this session, you going and having a look at my most recent posts on LinkedIn, where I basically lay out the entire blueprint of how I built my personal brand, how I drove nearly $1 million in revenue off the back of my LinkedIn page for my agency. And how I managed to do that is because I realized while working in B2B marketing and while working in employer branding, that the people within a business appeared to me at the time to have an exponentially larger reach than the company brand did online. And at the time, that was just a gut feel for me, right? Like I was working in a recruitment agency, and for me, I could see all the effort that we were putting into the marketing of our company page, on our LinkedIn pages, on our Instagram pages, and all the email marketing, all the money that was getting spent on marketing the agency. And I could see what we weren't getting much back. And for a marketer, that's really fucking depressing, quite honestly. You're being paid to market a business and differentiate that business from its competitors. And for anyone that understands recruitment, it's an incredibly saturated market. It's incredibly depressing to think that you're not getting the results that you're putting into that marketing strategy, right? And so when I took a little bit of a step back from that strategy, what I realized while looking at data and checking out our CRM and seeing where most of our leads were coming from was that almost 100% of our leads, i.e. clients coming in wanting to work with us, candidates wanting to work with us, were coming directly from the recruiters. They were coming directly from the people who were doing the job, right? It would be good to get a little show of hands in the chat box here of anyone that works in a service-based business, because I feel like this will, what I'm about to say will really relate to you. When you operate in a service-based business like recruitment, your people within the business are the product, right? You're not selling like a bottle or something that you can just ship out. The product is the people. And so when I looked at that as an idea, and then I looked at how many leads were coming in through our people, it became glaringly obvious to me that the reason why we weren't able to differentiate ourselves as a brand whilst marketing the brand was because we were marketing the wrong thing. People weren't coming to us because we as an agency were better than all the other agencies. People were coming to us because our recruiters were better than all the other recruiters. And so when I kind of got this idea in my head, I went to the CEO at the time and I said, hey, Mr. CEO, I would Mr. CEO as well, but this person was a man. Hey, Mr. CEO, I really think that we should be getting our team to be sharing content as well as our social media channels. But I really do think that our team should be sharing the content first and foremost, because I think that's going to exponentially increase our reach. That's going to mean that we get more inbound leads, more thought leadership. We're going to really be positioned as the supplier of choice instead of a choice amongst many in a very saturated industry. That CEO thought I was nuts and told me that it was ridiculous, but I did it anyway, because I always think it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission. And what I found very quickly was I started off with about 1,500 followers of my LinkedIn. And I grew that very, very, very quickly to 8,000 followers. And when I grew that to 8,000 followers, I kind of proved to myself and also to the people that were working with me and I was working for in the business that this strategy of marketing yourself as an individual versus marketing the business alone was going to get us better results. Now, why did that strategy, why did personal branding, although I didn't know it was personal branding back then, why did personal branding as a strategy get me better results? Well, if we look at this beautiful little graph that I created earlier, the reason why the individuals within the business I was working for and myself get better results online is because an individual within a business has 560% times more reach than the company brand online. Brand messages, identical brand messages, are shared 24 times more frequently when they're shared by an employee or a founder versus when they're shared by the company page. Leads, and this is where it gets really interesting for anyone that is on this workshop right now because they want to make money, and if that's not your primary concern, then maybe we need to have a different conversation. For anyone that's on this call wants to make money, leads that come in through your personal brand or your employees' personal brands convert 7 times more frequently than leads that come through any other channel. What that means is your website, your social media, if your company page, email, like any other channel that you currently get leads from, leads that come in through your employees' channels and your personal social media channels convert 7 times more frequently. And that is because people buy from people, particularly if you're in a service-based business. People buy from people, but most importantly, they buy from people they trust. So if we look at this as an idea, the amount of reach that you have offline, the one-to-one conversations that you have with your potential customers, your potential clients, etc., is tiny. And that's really representative in this graph. The reach that you have from your company socials is slightly bigger, which is why everyone goes to social media. Everyone needs to have their brand on social media. We have to be creating content, because they think if they create content on their company page, that they're going to in some way reach every single person that they need to reach. If you're not doing that in tandem with your employees posting content as well, you are missing out on so much of the market share. And actually, if we look at a graph, which I stupidly didn't put in this slide deck here today, if you're not getting your employees to share content, you are missing out on 85% of a passive audience. So if you look at, I don't know if anyone's come across the pie graph of consideration that HubSpot did on the inbound marketing model. but they basically look at a market of any given size of any particular vertical in one way. 85% of your audience at any given time are not ready to buy from you. They're passive. They're not interested in working with you. 12% of your audience at any given time are considering working with someone like you. Perhaps they know they have a problem to solve. They're not really sure who needs to solve it for them, but they're like looking out in the market. 3%, just 3% of your audience at any given time are ready to buy. The way that all of you currently are probably marketing is appealing to the 3% and not to the majority 85%, which means you're competing with every other Tom, Dick, and Harry that does what you do. Your messaging is going to be almost identical because you're all trying to sell to this tiny, tiny little piece of market share, but they're ready to buy. And you're not actually influencing their buying decision before they get to that stage. So that is why it's so important for you as founders or as entrepreneurs or even as employees to build up your personal brands within the topic that you want to be known for. And what I mean by that is I want to be known for personal branding. So I talk a lot about personal branding. What do you want to be known for? Because it's not an industry professional, because that's not what is going to separate you. It might be, I need to be an expert in marketing. I need to be an expert in recruitment. I need to be an expert in leadership, whatever it might be. But when you build up thought leadership in those topics, people begin to trust you in the 85% majority who are passive, so that when they get to the consideration stage, you are the first person they come to. That lead does not even enter the market because it doesn't need to. They've already decided who they're going to work with. So that is why personal branding matters so much to your business. And as I said a minute ago, brand messages are shared by employees on social media, including the founder, earn 561% more reach online. So that is a fact. I can send you where I got the sources from. So all this attention is probably going to make most of you uncomfortable, because let's be honest, it's very difficult to have honest opinions with our families and friends, least of all put our opinions online. But that attention is not what personal branding is about. Personal branding is not an ego-driven activity. It's a strategic marketing imperative to set your business and your employees and your services and your products apart from all the rest of the companies in your market. Because when you win that attention, it builds trust, right? And it's the trust that you build with your audience that then creates authority. You then become known as the person in your space. And it's that authority that drives inbound leads, allowing you to increase your client customer potential, increase revenue, etc. But it also enables you to hire better people. Like, the most underrated way to grow a business is to get employees who want to work for you. I've grown my business so organically because people want to work for clout, because we put ourselves out there so much that they've bought into who we are, they're bought into our values, they're bought into our culture because of the personal brands that I and my team have built. And more importantly, above everything, it positions you as the supplier of choice, right? You're not competing, as I said earlier, with the masses, with this massive saturated market, with all these other people that do exactly what you do, because you're the supplier that people want to work with. When people come to you, it's not even a conversation about what can you do for us, because they know what you can do for them. It's more a conversation about converting. And if you're only having conversion conversations, you're going to convert a hell of a lot more leads than if you're having to convince people to work with you in the first place. And of course, for those of you who are listening to this, who want to build their personal brand from more of a thought leadership perspective, not necessarily from a driving sales perspective, when you build your personal brand online, whether it be on TikTok, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, on Twitter, or all of the above, you then start creating further personal branding and PR opportunities for yourself, which if you plan on exiting at some point, or if you plan on, accelerating your career, whatever it might be, will open up so many more opportunities for you, because it's not enough for you to be the best at what you do. You have to be the best known at what you do. And that is why personal branding is so important for your business. So how does this work? So I've just rattled off a bunch of stats to you, but I think it's really important to show graphically how personal branding works. So as I said earlier, the traditional way of selling to people or to customers, or however it might be, is through one-on-one, right? It's me sitting here on a Zoom call with you, convincing you to work with us. It's whacking around a golf ball at a golf course somewhere in Florida, being like, come and spend your money with me. It's a one-to-one conversation, right? There's only so many one-to-one conversations that you can have, any phone calls you can make, any emails you can send in a day. And that was the traditional model of how we do sales, right? It's that one-to-one relationship building. And then social media came along, and every Tom, Dick, and Harry said, hey, every brand has to be on every single channel on social media, because that's how we're going to win customers now. And so you and all of your competitors and every other brand in the entire world decided that they needed to be on social media because they could market not just one-on-one anymore, but they could market one to many. And so instead of having 100 conversations a day, they could have 1,000 conversations a day. And isn't this much more efficient? How many more people can we reach? Personal branding is an elevation of company social media. And the reason why it's an elevation of company social media is your brand social media talks at your community. It talks at the audience that you're trying to attract. It talks at your customer. Your team talk to them. It's a two-way conversation. It's a community. It's interesting. It's engaging. It's a conversation. It's relationship building at its core. It's very similar to the one-on-one business that we used to do back in the day. Like if anyone cut their teeth on a sales floor when I did, it was all about relationship building on a one-to-one basis. But instead of it now being limited to 24 hours in a day that I can make phone calls, I can now build relationships with millions and millions and millions of people every single day, simply by having my personality on my personal page and putting my opinions out there, adding my value where I think it's worthwhile, and going back to people, having conversations in the DMs, having conversations in the comment section. I've been able to drive $1 million in inbound revenue just off LinkedIn alone, purely by building these incredible relationships with people at scale. And that's what personal branding is all about, guys. It's about building relationships with people at scale. So you don't have to have these one-on-one conversations anymore. It's about having a one to millions as opposed to thousands or hundreds of conversations and relationships at any given time. So hopefully that all makes sense. So that leads me on really, really nicely to how do you do this? What is the strategy that you can implement in order to build your personal brand? And as I said, if you just joined us, if you have any questions, whack it in the chat or in the Q&A. We're going to try and aim for a 5-minute Q&A at the end of this session to answer any questions that you might have. If you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A. But how do we do this? All this lovely stuff I've just said sounds fucking amazing, Amelia, but how do we implement this? First and foremost, you need to really understand what you want to be known for. Now, that is a very loaded question, because what you want to be known for isn't just professional or nice. It's really the stuff that aspirationally, when you look fast forward 5 years, what do you want to be famous for? Like, what are the things that you want people to think of you when you're not in the room? For me, it's personal branding. For me, it's scaling a startup. For me, it's leadership. That is what I want to be influential in. So because it can create opportunities for me in the future, but also because it's going to create opportunities for me now. It's going to drive me inbound business. It's going to attract talent to want to work for me. And it's going to want to bring people on the journey of me growing my startup. So what do you aspirationally want to be known for? And if you don't have the answer to that, which I think probably half of you, maybe even more, won't, just start posting. What is stopping you for spending the next 6 weeks just posting whatever the fuck you want, and then looking back 6 weeks later at all the data and deciding what's worked for your audience, what's resonated with your audience, but most importantly, what did you most enjoy talking about? When you have a 6-week testing trial period of just chucking out stuff and seeing what sticks, you'll be absolutely amazed the kind of results that you get from that, purely from a confidence perspective, but also from a recognition perspective of what works for you and what doesn't. And you'll find during that 6-week period that the question of what do you want to be known for answers itself. Once you've worked out what you want to be known for, you need to start creating and curating content in line with those brand pillars. So what I mean by that is, I've just told you I want to be known for personal branding, I want to be known for leadership, and I want to be known for scaling my startup clout. Those 3 things are my brand pillars. For you, it might be social media, it might be marketing, it might be being a single mom, it might be you're a Spurs fan, like whatever it might be. But there needs to be a number of things that you want to be famous for, because otherwise, if you don't have some strategy around that are things that you want people to think of you, what reputation are you building other than gathering followers? You need to think strategically about what people need to think of you in order to want to buy from you. So when you have those content pillars in place, start creating and curating content in line with those pillars. And if you want to get a good idea of what that looks like, again, I think I said at the beginning of this session, for those of you who weren't with us when I first started, I wrote an article on Medium which breaks down exactly how you can think of that in a thought process. And it's on the most recent LinkedIn post I did today. I've linked it there, but basically it's a blueprint of how to come up with your brand pillars. So that might be helpful to some of you. Once you've worked out your brand pillars, you've figured out what you want to be known for, you can then, and started creating content around it, you can start distributing that on social media. The biggest mistake people make with personal branding is they think that they need to be on every single channel all at once. I was only on LinkedIn up until this year. I built my business 100% inbound only by posting on LinkedIn. And do you know why I only posted on LinkedIn? Because that's where my audience was. Why on earth would I waste any of my time diluting my efforts and watering down my ability to be able to make noise on other platforms when the one platform that's going to make me money is standing right there? So I put all my efforts, all my eggs into that first basket, which was LinkedIn, and built up a following on LinkedIn first so I could get that inbound revenue, get those people knowing who I was, get people wanting to work with clout before I turned my focus to other channels. And I think it's really important as well to note, you don't need to be on every channel. There is this like ridiculous FOMO that we all have about social media, that we have to be on TikTok, we have to be on LinkedIn, we have to be on Twitter. It's just not true. You need to be on the channels that are going to impact the people that you're trying to attract the most. And once you've nailed those down, yeah, sure, go and be on Instagram, go and be on Twitter, go and be on TikTok, but nail the ones that matter the most first. Otherwise, you're going to get so lost in the volume of content that you're going to have to create to cover every single channel that none of it is going to land. Now, the final piece of building your personal brand, and this is one of the most grossly undervalued pieces of building your personal brand, is engaging with other people's content, guys. It's called social media for a reason. You need to be social. You can't just chuck content up there and go, come and give me your opinions, guys, and then not give any of that love back. If you're going to post content, go back to your comments. If you're going to post content, go and engage with other people's content. A really good strategy here is going to pick like 5 or 10 key thought leaders, key influencers in the space that you want to be known for, or even better, that have already cultivated an audience that you want to attract, and start proactively commenting on their content every single day. I do this every single day with a list of 20 people. I pick like the top 10 each day, changes slightly, and I comment on their posts because I know if I comment on their posts consistently, the creator or the thought leader is going to notice who I am. I've now made a connection. But more importantly, their audience is going to know who I am, and their audience then is going to make a connection with me. And I now all of a sudden am making noise with the people that I want to speak to. So please, please, please don't sleep on this idea of just posting content and running. You have to engage with other people's content as well. And above all of this piece, if you're going to create content, you have to do it consistently. I always say to people, personal branding is 10% content and 90% the consistency in posting it. And consistency, by the way, doesn't mean frequency. It just means show up consistently. If you go to the gym 3 times a week, you need to be posting 3 times a week. If you go to the gym 5 times a week and then go one week the next week and then 3 times a week after that, that's not consistent. Might be frequent some weeks, but it's not consistent. Consistently show up on the platforms with both engaging and posting content. And then you repeat, right? You need to keep evolving, keep growing. Your personal brand is going to change as you change. When I first started building my personal brand, I was known for something completely different to what I'm known for today. I was known for employer branding, recruitment marketing, and just being some crazy chick on LinkedIn that posted about book recommendations and things that I was doing. Now my strategy is so clear about what I need to be known for to build the agency that I want to build. So keep evolving. Don't feel completely tied to the things that you're talking about today, because next year they might be completely different. And if you build up enough of the relationship with your audience, they will want to go on that journey with you. So just a few key takeaways before we move into the Q&A. As I said earlier, if you have any questions, please whack them in the chat or in the Q&A. So a few kind of like top things to stay consistent. Post at the same time every day. I post at 9 a.m. every single day, or at 4 p.m. Sometimes I post twice a day, but I'm not encouraging you to do that. Please post a minimum of 3 to 5 times a week. That will get you into the habit, and it will encourage the audience that you're trying to accumulate to know that you're going to show up and you're going to be there every single day. Document all your ideas. What I mean by that is every time I have a conversation, or I do a webinar, or I do a talk, or I'm literally having a meeting with my team, I go and voice note what happened, or the thought that I had, or the opinion that I had into the notes section of my phone, and that then becomes content. When you dictate all of your thoughts into your note sections of your phone, 2 things happen. 1, you can brain dump in real time. It means it's interesting, it's relevant, you have your thoughts all ironed out. But 2, it writes it exactly how you speak. The biggest issue that people have with copywriting on social media, whether it be captions for Instagram or microblogs for LinkedIn, is something weird happens when we all sit down to write copy, and we sound like we're writing a thank you letter to the king, right? You're not writing a thank you letter to the king. You're trying to engage with real human beings. And when you write how you speak, it converts, it's colloquial, it's interesting, and it's candid. So dictate your thoughts and feelings into your phone. And once per month, and this is where the real value piece comes in, write down the top 10 most frequently asked questions you've had from customers, from clients, from employees, whoever you're trying to attract, and then answer them in posts. These little spicy pieces of content are going to be the things that build up the thought leadership in the thing that you want to be known for. For me, it's personal branding. So all of my personal branding content comes from frequently asked questions. And that's what's going to allow people to see you as the authority in your space. And the final thing is, as I said, remember that building a strong personal brand is 10% content and 90% consistency in posting it. And this is the kind of last thing I want to leave you all with, which is your personal brand is like a high interest account. When you guys first start posting, and I'm sure some of you have been here before, you might get one like. Great, that's one more like that you would have had than if you didn't post at all. The next time you post, you might get 5, and that's 5 more likes that you wouldn't have got otherwise. Paying one time and you only get 1 like and then you stop posting, you're not going to build any brand equity whatsoever. Much like a high interest account, right? You put $1 in it and you don't put any more money into it, you're not going to get any returns. But if you put $1 in it every single day, and then that dollar turns into $5, that other dollar turns into $10, $20, $30, and I'm talking likes and engagement, of course, eventually over a period of time, you build a lot of brand equity. So stop focusing on the kind of vanity metrics of the individual posts in which you're posting, and start looking at the long-term play of how you can build influence with the people that you want to build it with. I think we're about ready for questions. Talia, did I do it in enough time? Did it in 28 minutes instead of 25, but hopefully we've got enough time for Q&A.
Thank you so much. We have a couple of questions in Q&A if you want to go through them really quickly.
Amazing.
Or would you prefer to?
Perfect. No, I can see them. Okay. So Louis, thank you so much for joining us, Louis. Big fan of yours, Amelia. Been following you on LinkedIn since before Clout. Thank you. God, it's been a journey, hasn't it, Louis? My question is, what would you have done differently if you could start again today with your personal brand and your business? What would I have done differently? Honestly, I wish I hadn't taken it so seriously. And I mean that with the utmost respect and seriousness of the work that I do. Anyone that follows me on LinkedIn will know that I take what I do really seriously, but I don't take myself seriously. And I think when I first started, I took myself too seriously because I felt like I needed to be a very polished version of myself. And actually, my growth has really come not just in my personal brand, but in my company and my revenue, etc., when I really started to embrace the Amelia that everyone in this office knows. So that would be what I would do differently. But to be honest, actually, I don't think I would do anything differently because I'm very happy with where I am. But yeah, so great question. Thanks, Louis. Steve, how do I answer this live? I need to press a button, I feel. Okay. Steve, thank you so much for coming. How do you select the most appropriate channel to start with to get maximum initial traction? Great question. The easiest way to figure this out, Steve, would be to go and ask your target audience. Like get like a little thought group together of like 10 people and just say, where do you spend the most time online? Is it on Instagram? Is it on TikTok? Like where would you go to get your industry information? They're a wealth of knowledge. Don't just guess because that means you'll end up on a channel that probably isn't relevant. So ask your audience. Vicky, thank you so much for coming. Do you post natively or use a scheduler? Always post natively, Vicky. Number one, what's the fucking point in posting content if you're not going to be on the platform to answer it? That's the first thing. Secondly, if you're thinking about time, the amount of time it takes, anyone that's used a scheduler or Hootsuite knows the amount of time it takes for you to schedule that content. You may as well just bloody post it anyway. So post it natively. And the second thing is, I don't care what any platform says, LinkedIn particularly is bad at this. They know when you're not on the platform and it will not get as much reach as if you post it live. So absolutely post your content live for sure. And for anyone that knows, like wants to know what natively means in app. So you go into the app, put your content out there and you post it as opposed to using something like Hootsuite. Dave, thank you so much for joining us, Dave. Fantastic talk and how important are stories, backstories and emotional elements. Dave, it's called personal branding for a reason, right? I think there is a really clear definition between being private and being personal. I share some really personal shit on my LinkedIn, definitely on my Instagram, 100% on my TikTok, but I don't share my private life. Like you don't know who I'm dating, you don't know what my kids look like. You probably don't know what car I drive because that's my private life. but I'm still the same person as I am here doing this webinar, as I am on every other platform. So to kick the question back to you, like, how personal do you want to be? Like, really, how private do you want to be? How much do you want to share of yourself? The more you share of yourself, the more vulnerable you can be, the more honest you can be, the more people will like you. But I do think there needs to be a clear boundary between what you want to keep private and what you're happy to share, for sure. Naima, I hope I've said your name correctly. Sorry, I'm very dyslexic. I find it very difficult to read stuff that's not glaringly obvious. Thank you for coming. How do you see LinkedIn changing next week, and how things move? Look, algorithms change every single week. They have big updates almost every single month. Stop focusing on the algorithm, start focusing on the quality of your content. I think that's pretty much the answer that I would give anyone. It doesn't matter about algorithms if you're creating content that resonates with the audience you're trying to attract. So focus on that. Louis, this is the same Louis from before. Would you suggest starting out being specific, as in less topics, or keep broad to test? I would, if you don't know what you want to be known for just yet, Louis, I would just go broad. Just post whatever you want. Post about things that you're interested in, you know, articles that you read, tweets that you saw, ideas that you want to share, whatever it might be. Just start posting. There's nothing you can lose and everything that you can gain, because you're going to get so many data points that are going to help you kind of figure out what you want to be known for and build that strategy foundation. But you're never going to get those data points unless you just fucking do it. So just start posting, start off broad, and then you can niche it down to what you really want to be known for. Saba, thank you for joining us. I'm hearing clarity is really important. I find myself often having a few themes I would like to be known for, and I wonder if I should post all of those theme contents under the same account or create separate channels, or should I try to prioritize and forget about the less important ones? Why on earth would you want to create different accounts? My God, that sounds so stressful. You don't have to be known for just one thing. There are 3 or 4 things that I would like to be known for, and I post about all of those things. But I do think it's important that you don't have like 1,000 things that you're talking about, because if you have 1,000 things that you're talking about, you can't be famous for 1,000 things, right? But you can be famous for a few things. So pick the things that you're really passionate about. Like, what is your reality? What do you do? What's the value that you can add? What are you really passionate about? And stick to those themes. And of course, if you go off piece of that, that's fine. Like, once in a while, no worries. I talk about random shit all the time, but I'm very strategic in the 3 things I want to be known for, and that's what forms the basis of my content plan on a weekly basis. Anna Maria, I think we've got time for a couple more questions. Great presentation. What's the hardest thing you have to overcome during this journey? I don't know if this is in context of personal branding or in context of building the business. But in context of personal branding, the hardest thing I've had to overcome was critics. Like, when you start putting yourself out there, and inherently I had very low confidence before starting to build my personal brand. So when I started to post content and people were telling me I was wrong, and you know, who am I to be saying these things? I took that quite hard initially. However, the amazing thing about getting that feedback from people, and about getting that critique from people, and about getting the shit comments from people, is it's built up the most incredible resilience and the most incredible confidence in myself that I never knew I had. And honestly, I would take it 1,000 times more if I knew the outcome was going to be the same. Confidence that you get from building your personal brand is invaluable. I now have such a confidence in myself, in my ability. I love my life. I trust myself. I don't have imposter syndrome. And that's, to be honest, all come from building my personal brand and being able to put my thoughts and opinions out there and be 100% okay with the consequences of those thoughts and opinions. Okay, so I'm going to answer 3 more questions. And then, guys, if you have any more questions, just shoot me a DM on LinkedIn, live on that platform, or on Instagram. It's much easier to get hold of me on Instagram than it is on LinkedIn. Louis again, my God. No, same question. Okay, so we've got a few more. Palav, thank you so much for joining us. Do you use cold email as well? We don't do any cold outreach. We are 100% inbound, which is great. But there is going to come a time next year where my love for being inbound is less important than my love for creating revenue. So we will be hiring a salesperson next year who'll be like a head of sales kind of person, where we will start doing cold outreach. But it's not going to be cold, because we're going to warm those people up with personal branding, with interacting with their content, with sharing stuff with them that they find interesting, et cetera, before we do that cold outreach. Last question. Let's see. Toby, as a brand designer, I find it, thank you for joining us. As a brand designer, I find it really difficult to cut through all the noise, i.e. cat memes on LinkedIn. It's like shouting into a dark cave sometimes. I'm really conscious of not trying to sell to people, but I need to reach, I need more reach to show how I can affect brands and the quality of my work. Any tips? First of all, Toby, if you're only getting cat memes on your feed, you're engaging with the wrong content. LinkedIn's algorithm will give you more of what you want to see, right? It will give you, content that you engage with. So that's the first thing. So if you don't like what you're seeing in your feed, change it. Go and engage with other people's stuff that you do want to see, and that will tell the LinkedIn algorithm to put that stuff in your feed, right? The second thing is, if you don't want to sell to people, then just share your work. Share all the amazing stuff that you're working on. When you're a graphic designer, you're a brand designer, you're working on shit every single day that people will find interesting. And a really good example of this, of someone who's done this so well by not even sharing any of his work, just sharing other people's work, is Ilfred Samba, ex Gymshark, head of social. Anyone that's in social media probably follows him. He's now started his own thing, but he built a massive personal brand purely by sharing social media from other brands and other channels that he thought was doing well. So have a real look at like what you can share that's not salesy, which by the way, you should share salesy stuff every now and again. You need to tell people what you're selling. And the way you do that, Toby, is you share results posts. And what I mean by results posts is I'll share a WhatsApp from a client being like, thank you so much for making me £720,000 over the course of the year, posting on my LinkedIn. And I'll put that out there. And that's my like sales post. That's the thing of like, here's my results. Here's what I've done for people. If you want to do the same, come work with me, but only do that once a week. You need to give loads of free, valuable information away before you can ask for anything in return, because people love to spend their money with you. They hate being sold to. So I hope that's helpful, Toby. And I do go into more detail, as I said earlier. Like, I'm not trying to like sell you anything at all. Like 100%, I've come to do this with Talia because I believe in like giving back. I believe so strongly that personal branding is a game changer. It's changed my life, and I want to pass that forward. And this article I wrote is free. You just have to like go on the internet basically, but it's basically a blueprint of how I built my personal brand and how you can use like sort of semi-sales tactics, Toby, to drive inbound revenue. So it's on Medium. If you're interested, I can send the link to Talia, and maybe she can share with you guys after. So that's all we have time for, unfortunately, with questions. If you guys do have any questions, like on top of what we've been through already, please, on my Instagram, DMs are open. So feel free to ping me a message or maybe share your questions with Talia, and I'd be happy to take the time to respond to them as well. But thank you so much for having me.
Thanks so much, Amelia. You were incredible. The recording will be up on our YouTube in the next couple of days, so we'll share it with you all, and have a good evening.
Have a great evening, guys.
Bye.